G'day and welcome to another episode of Agents Unleashed. We've had last minute shenanigans, but we're all here live and talking. And our intent today is to explore solution intent. One of a number of us have had it as a kind of favorite portion of SAFe for years. And it's not necessarily a well-known or well-used portion, but it's always had some great guidance in it. And we're wondering whether AI will kill the chance that anybody will ever pay attention to it, or perhaps give us more of a chance that it becomes more used and referenced as we move forward. Stephan has done an awful lot of research to prep for us. I'll hand you to him.
Thank you very much and welcome. We're standing at an intersection. And Mark already presented one of them, the solution intent, which is in SAFe, it's this knowledge repository for what we're building and how we will build it. And now at this same intersection, we have the AI transformation, right? And it represents a fundamental paradox. AI can accelerate the creation and the evolution of solutions and the solution intent, while simultaneously threatening to make it either obsolete or maybe it could become, in a kind of a way, dangerously rigid. So probably some tension there while standing at that intersection. Solution intent originally was designed for complex large-scale systems where variability must be preserved until knowledge emerges. And now AI kicks in, promising us to eliminate this variability by generating complete specifications, codes, parts of solutions instantly. So what are we going to do? We are winding our heads around the core definition of the solution intent again. And I would like to open with kind of a critical question. Does AI really enable better solution intent through this rapid exploration of alternatives? Or does it destroy the very variability that makes solution intent valuable? So based on this little framing, based on these critical questions, where's your true passion? Where's your special moment? Where's your perhaps a challenge you see standing at that intersection? Who kicks it off?
Let me. Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm not gonna lie. I have seen very few companies that went to SAFe and then installed a solution intent. I haven't. So that's my personal total bias, and I fully understand that. Most of the times I saw agile coaches pointing at something that was already existing and then calling that solution intent, whether it was some form of a requirements gathering system or whatsoever. And then it's like, you see, we have solution intent as well. It had nothing to do with SAFe. So I think everybody understands this, the need for a repository that over time becomes more fixed, so that you have sort of an audit trail. And I do see the need for that as well, the necessity even. But trying to replace that or make that, let's say, make it better with AI, I'm not really sure yet. So in this episode, I will be listening more than talking.
Okay, Ali, you're sitting at the back of the room. Well, we will ask you questions as well, so be attentive. Niko, how about you? Oh, Mark, go.
I was just going to say, I'm going to jump on the back of Ali because I've never seen anybody install a solution intent. I've never told anybody to install a solution intent because I've always thought of solution intent as, and this just came to me while I was listening to you, right? A map, a mesh, and a mindset, right? Because I always looked and I went, you've got artifacts, right? And the solution intent article talks about artifacts. You've got quality management systems, you've got traceability reports, you've got specifications, you've got proof of compliance to regulatory standards, you've got features, you've got stories. They're all artifacts. And the idea for me of solution intent was to go, we need to understand how they fit together and how they live together. And what I always loved about it was this idea that it said, well, we've got usually all those artifacts, so different people care about them and different people own them, and not many of them talk to each other. right? The architects have got theirs and the product managers have got theirs. And the idea of solution intent was go, oh, let's actually start to work out how all of your artifacts connect. And then let's start to think about maybe how we might want to evolve them, because there was some really great trigger guidance about the way you might want to evolve your artifacts. And that for me is where if I went AI, well, AI is going to make every company on the planet radically change the way it deals with those artifacts. And maybe this is an opportunity, because so much refactoring is about to take place. Maybe this is an opportunity for us to get something that looks more like a solution intent type mesh than a lot of them have done in the past.
Ooh, let's see if it goes to good or to bad, if AI will restructure these things. So from my side, Stephan, let me tell you a small story. I was writing an article, and then, of course, sparring with AI, and he told me back, should I write it more in your style? So that's okay. You know my style. That's great. That's why Mark said, okay, he will take over solution intents and make it differently. So, okay, he knows about my style. And then he wrote things about installing. Thank you, Ollie, for that word. And about operation system. And I don't like these words, by the way, in coaching on transformation. It's never installing in my case, and it's never operating system. So for me, solution intent, by the way, is the most important artifact I steal from large solutions and install it, and put it on the normal solutions. There was a time before SAFe when I used solution intent too, and I called it product memory, not solution intent.
Nice.
And if you go to the translation of solution intent in German, so if you go to the glossary of SAFe and look how we translated it, meanwhile my college changed it a little bit. Before it was really called the product development memory. Now it's called only development memory. I will maybe should be part again in some discussions. So I like the idea of calling it the memory, or of calling the product memory. And that's what it should be. So another question is, which part of the product memory, solution intent, AI can help us? And I think there are some where we can use the strength, but there are some which we shouldn't use, because then we'll go in fairy tale land.
Interesting. I already love standing at this intersection with you guys. I love options thinking, and I like simulating. What if I can steer to different directions? I still have options open, but what I've learned in my life and in my life as a coach, as an agent, as long as I'm not losing sight of the goal. So let's dive in. Solution intent. First trigger. I would summarize speed versus clarity. So you brought awesome pictures. I heard the mesh. I hear a good listener at the back of the room. I hear this kind of memory. And the question is, does AI generated stuff, documents, specs, solutions solve unclear requirements? Or does it even more create dangerous solutions? And do we think that speed equals clarity? What are your thoughts around this kind of trigger? And I would like to start with Ali, although you wanted to only listen.
Oh yeah, but I'll share my opinion. So speed versus clarity. Does AI generated specs or solutions solve unclear requirements? I think there is a lot to gain over there. You can feed your own agent with all of the requirements and all of the plans of all products that you've ever made. To give you probably the ability to produce very clear, let's say, work items, things to do, what to do first, what to do next, all of that guidance. However, I don't think that's enough, because I really think that in companies there is a continuous need for a person that is responsible for the specs. Why? Because if I would put it very bluntly, there's a need for a single ringable neck. If the specification has not been written out correctly, or I should call it differently, if the customer request or the market request has not been translated into clear requirements, we need to be able to go back to that person and be like, what the hell, man? Um, and I think that cannot really be replaced with AI. I mean, let me rephrase again. Oh my God, it can be, but I don't think people want to. So there's a lot of speed and clarity actually to be gained, but I think it will hit a certain. There are some limitations, and the limitations are much more introduced by humans and what we want to be, what we want to have in place to remain in control, more than what we can achieve with the technological advancements.
You're tackling this term of clarity. How about you, Niko? You brought up some good thoughts.
Now I have a different thoughts.
Go for it.
What is the solution intent for? I usually explain it as your bus factor savior. So if your whole team is under the bus and the new team comes and takes over, it's the entry point to understand what's all about. I would be afraid if somebody writes it without, like Ali said, without responsibility, and that's just full of text, but not written the way to enable people to understand what is going on, what was going on. So I think AI could be a help in writing this, but it shouldn't be verbose as it is now, or at least maybe I do something wrong. So even if I said all my LLMs be short, and they're always, and if people start using AI to read things AI have wrote, I'm not sure if this bus factor savior aspect of solution intent will help you. So it's what Ali triggered now at the moment. What I thought originally, I think AI can help us here in summarize things, and should be a summarization, should be exactly something new enters the team, and this person has to understand what is going on. And meanwhile, also I'm thinking about aspects AI cannot help us, and it's not about speed in this case, as you asked, Stephan. It's more about creativity, and I'm still convinced that AI lives in the past. It works with data, and it cannot really be creative. It, at least, please, dear listeners in the podcast, if you have sources or other ideas, write it down. I really want to learn also from you. At the moment in the world I'm living, or in my bubble, AI is not able to be creative. So the options thinking, Stephan, you mentioned at the beginning, I don't see AI thinking this way. They think can help us triggering new ideas, but it comes from, at the moment, from human brains, not from statistics. So what was the question? Sorry.
Yeah, we're talking about a repository, and we are winding our head around speed versus clarity, or speed and clarity. And I like what you framed this. It's the question how it's created, right? And how do we use it again? So interesting thoughts, Mark.
So, like, if I clock back to before AI came along and when solution intent came out as an article, and you go back and you go, well, the hippie agilist me got taught stories of things you should be able to tear up when they're done.
Yeah.
That's what every XTB team on the planet built, was you have a bin at the end of your board, and when you're done with the story, you tear the card up and you throw it in the bin. And it's like, but people are like, well, but I need traceability. And I need the documentation about, the full intent. And then I'd have this discussion, right? Because most of my clients were enterprise clients and working in brownfields. And I'd say, okay, show me the current state of your system. Where's the document that says this is how it works today? And most of them would just look very bashful and they go, we wish we could, right? But there was a truth that said if you wanted to know how it worked today, you had to go back and read the SAD that was written for the project that installed it. And then you had to read the SADs for the next 50 projects that had made changes to it, and get very good at kind of consolidating that together to go, this is how maybe it's meant to work today. But everybody kind of knew, even for the latest version, by the time you deployed it, it was different to what you wrote that you were going to deploy. And what I loved about the solution intent framing was it said, well, we've got fixed and flexible. And let us have this mindset of going, we've got a flexible way of describing what we're thinking about doing. And then we've got a fixed way of going, this is the way it works today. Right. If I want to know how the thing works right now, this minute, I go to my living documentation and it will tell me, however I happen to represent that. And so there was that beautiful mindset Now, let's think about moving fast. And I'm going to go and I'm going to come back to something that was definitely not a large solution, but one of the guys I've always thought really looked up to as a kind of engineering inspiration, Llewellyn Falco. And he was on this podcast recently where he talked about a hackathon for good they'd done. It was him and a couple of other people. And they put out, I think it was 32 iterations of their product across 2 days. I was like,
That's a lot.
Right? That's really interesting, right? And it was a product that was going to be put in the hands of clinical psychologists to improve their ability to take notes when they were observing interactions between parents and children where the parents felt they were at risk of domestic violence because of the nature of their interactions. Right? It was serious business. But the interesting thing that came at the end of it was Llewellyn said, at the end of it, the most important thing was actually the documents, prompts, and specs that were guiding it, not the code, right? And if you had to tell me at the end of that 2 days, you can keep either the specs or the code, I would have chosen to keep the specs because I could get the code back really fast. And that's what you see if you look around this whole world today is this, the more and more when people are going, how do you actually get AI to write useful things for you? It's all about the quality of your specifications. And actually, I screenshotted a beautiful quote from somebody else talking on it. And he said, we're moving from code is the source of truth to intent is the source of truth. With AI, the specification becomes the source of truth and determines what gets built. And
interesting, which is the complete opposite of what back in the days I'm not sure who said this. Maybe it was Kent Beck or I don't know, the extreme programming guys who said code doesn't lie, documents do.
Yeah. So this is like the world's changing, and it's beautiful because the world's changing to living intent, which is kind of what we always wanted for solution intent. But if I kind of zoom back to the question, I've been sitting more and more in the AI modalities that the 4D fluency framework talks about. And automation is get the AI to do something for you. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking about automation when it comes to solution intent. AI can write a long document for me, and they get the experience Niko just described. A long document full of rubbish. But if you sit there and you go, actually, I'm going to sit more in augmentation and AI as my sparring partner, it actually can be creative, but it can be creative in different ways. You can say, here's my current thinking, point out the 3 biggest flaws in it. Right? I'm planning to use this tech stack. This is my current intent. What are the 5 biggest assumptions I should be testing? And you find that it can be a provocateur, right? And if you look at the idea that says, well, I'm going to hand curate my solution intent, right? It's really important to me. But the way I'm going to use it is as an augmentation to my thinking, not as an automator of the production of voluminous amounts of rubbish. Then you see a different world.
Can I have a YouTube small for that? No, short for that. Was really cool. Thank you, Mark.
Yes, I really like this thinking, Mark. But still, I'm picky. I'm joining Ali at the back of the room, sitting next to him, poking him and asking, who's accountable for that? Who's accountable now for how you augment stuff for the scenarios we're talking about? Who owns the intent? Because yes, you said it's a collaboration, and maybe a major part will be done by AI. But Ali, you asked who's accountable. How would you answer that question?
I'm going to keep going because I'm going to be quick, and then I'm going to hand it over to the guys. Right? Because my follow-up to my previous little spiel is, and the way you framed it was if AI wrote 80% of the intent, Stephan, in the actual trigger. And my answer was, if you let AI generate 80% of your solution intent, the only person that's accountable for that much rubbish is you.
Yes.
Solution intent's where you've got your hands firmly on the wheel so you can let go later. Over to you, boys.
Okay, who's next?
The accountant is accountable. No. It should be always a human. It's a BA, the business analyst. If you have them, it's the PM, it's the architect. At the end, it's always one neck, or sorry, neck. No, sorry, Stephan. It's one ringable neck, single ringable. One single ringable neck should be. I just thought I didn't finish the thought. That it just appeared while Mark was talking. It's like when your kids do something stupid. As long as they are young, the parents are responsible for that. And so at the end, if AI just rubbishes your solution intent, the owner of the solution intent is the one who is accountable. So bullshit summarization, it's your problem, not AI's problem. So like with kids, if they destroy something, if they post pictures of teachers that are not allowed or whatever, it's your responsibility. You didn't teach them or configure them right. Oh, configuring kids. Ooh.
So, it's called education.
So we've gone
perfect,
from
Ali.
We've gone from the single. No, go Ali.
Okay, let's go back. Accountability. Ali was asking, who's the one to grab the mic?
I've been thinking a bit because so imagine we're in a world where just AI is the team member, and therefore we all have teams with multiple AI agents and a sort of a coordinator, like a human coordinator in between. Even if code, specs, summarization of specs, intent has been written, rewritten, adjusted, verified by AI agents, there is still the human coordinator that has the responsibility to coordinate these agents. And therefore, I think accountability would be with that person. But I find it difficult because what if at some moment in time, the coordinator is automated? And, there is still the how do you call it? A form of, a company wants to get a certain product or functionality out there into the market. So somebody makes the choice of stating, you know what, we are going to build that functionality. That would mean that person would have the accountability or take the accountability or delegate it somehow to some proxy, even if from that moment onwards, everything that happens after the development, the documentation of it, the release, and the deployment of that functionality is done fully automated or fully AI'd, then still there is the person who initiated this entire sequence, and therefore I think there is inside of a company we need to have sort of the accountability that can be. We need to be able to point at a person and ask questions, but I'm not really sure where it would land. So I don't think I have an answer here. I think I have more questions than answers here.
So
Mark,
I can see we're queuing up at the moment. I'll jump in quickly, right? One of the ways, and I was reading about it just recently, and they framed it beautifully, because the more that I think about delegation as a way of framing our interaction with AI, the more powerful it is to me. And the point they made out, right, was we all know there's all kinds of potential flaws and issues with the way AI works. Well, actually, we've all had junior team members who've had flaws and issues with the way they work. And we've long had a view that said, well, there are ways and means of setting up delegations. And, the accountability generally floats with the accountability via which you frame the delegation. And it's a mix of, how effective was the way in which you framed the delegation, how clear were the guardrails, what were the monitoring, all kinds of things we knew were kind of classic hallmarks of good delegation from senior leadership. If you take that same mindset with AI and go, and maybe I've got somebody fresh out of college, I've got somebody who's a couple of years in the workforce, I've got somebody who's been with the company for 10 years, I'm going to approach delegation differently. Well, I think I'm going to approach delegation differently depending on the sophistication of our AI ecosystem. But at the end of the day, I think you just copy across. How do we think about delegation to humans? Well, actually, an awful lot of them makes sense to delegate to AIs. Niko, you wanted to talk.
You said something similar but smarter. I just thought about what is science and what is science fiction in this question. And at the moment, I can't imagine AI can take this responsibility of setting an intent. Okay, killing Sarah Connor is science fiction, but so how could AI be able to create meaningful content for the future. That was where I was struggling. So, would you delegate something to a junior which is so important, or what should the junior be able to do? Maybe you can. Maybe he has a different education, but that's where I was struggling. Where I thought I want to say something, and then I realized you nailed it somehow better with better English and sounding smarter than I was doing. So thank you for that, Mark.
I don't have to start in one language and then present it in another. So
good. I like where the discussion is heading to. We started with accountability. Mark brought in, again, it's the intent, and the intent has to come, and Ali, you supported that as well, from human beings, right? And we all know some people are really accountable in their trade, in their profession, some don't, and they end up in jail. And Niko always tickles our mind each week with a jiggle and a question. And he said, or he asked us to write down our thoughts about you're in a prison. What is the responsibility of the solution intent in the context of AI, organizational wise, or when it comes to facilities, to buildings? Who would like to kick off the jiggle?
Let me give it a try, because Niko is always extremely creative with with the jiggles. So in a prison, what's the responsibility of the solution intent in the context of AI? Well, I thought it is the daily check-in registry. I have no idea what the actual term is. If you watch movies where, there's this sheriff, or how do you call it, this sort of a warden that, in the morning, says, screams like, open the doors, and everyone has to sort of stand, on the balustrade to see whether they're present. I don't know. I've seen The Shawshank Redemption too many times. It's my favorite movie. There's a registration to see whether everyone is there. Sort of a daily check-in registry. So what has been done, why, at what end, and for what reason, so that you could trace back what has been out there, who was there, who made a certain functionality, why was it made. So I lack the correct word for that type of registration, but I call that the daily check-in registry, and I thought, maybe that fits.
What's next?
This was, Niko, you are a torture master. Ali was hunting for a word for your weekly jiggle, and I went, weekly torture. So I went down a path, and in the end, I wasn't sure if I could really say it was an AI path, but this is the path I got, right? If you think about a prison, the prison has to balance between tensions. There's a tension which is they've got to provide a responsible duty of care to the prisoners. They've got to be fed, they've got to have access to health services, they've got to have humane treatment, and they've got to be protected from their fellow inmates. So there's a huge element of safety. Then there's a thing that says, well, they're in there and they're meant to be going through some kind of consequence for their actions. So they have to apply appropriate amounts of restriction so that it actually feels consequential. But then they've got this third thing that says, actually, they're meant to be rehabilitating them so that they can turn them out onto the streets as better citizens, better equipped for life at the end. I don't know how much experimentation and innovation I'm going to see in some of the kind of safety and control pieces, but I can imagine you'd want to run all kinds of experiments about different ways to prepare people for re-injection into society as they go through your prison. And somehow or other, all of these things have to live in a tension and balance between each other. And that's where I start to think about a solution intent, is zooming out, seeing the big picture, finding the things that must be held in balance, and then keeping track of how you're managing that balance. And I figured that was the kind of thing AI might actually do a pretty good job of having a look at.
Let me pick up this idea. It's a correction facility, right? Mm. And the inmates at the end of their term, they have to face the parole board. The parole board will decide, do you have to stay or can we release you? And it goes in the same direction, like you said. It's like a mediation, as you mentioned, Mark. It's kind of the governance. Who gets the freedom back and who has to stay because you're not yet on that state where you really are accountable again for yourself as a human being. And I would say that's the parole board. It's something that also is helping us to then decide, which will lead us later to the next few triggers. And I think it's a good thing. It's freedom versus bureaucracy. And if I probably would leave AI doing it, and we know that already some math behind AI does awful thing. And the solution intent should make sure that we have a good balance in there. But it needs a correction facility. Niko.
Yeah. If you go on a meta level and listen to your answers, you just gave the answer why AI couldn't be the solution intent or couldn't create the solution intent, because you all were in a culture where the idea of prison is people going back to society. That's not in all cultures. That's part of a context. And AI will never have this context. If AI should have answered this question, it wouldn't be able to, because it didn't know your context. There are some societies where prison is just revenge and not bringing people back to society. So then all this answer wouldn't be possible. But yeah, that's now more a meta level philosophical discussion. I love the answers. But yeah, it has a lot of not context window, but a lot of background. And I'm sure AI is not able to know all the history of a company, all the values of a company. Even if you give a PowerPoint with that's our values, it will miss something. And for a solution intent, I have to know what is given, and sometimes some given things are in the culture. But yeah, the idea of jiggle is to jiggle and not to reflect too much and be sad at the end. I was disappointed by my answer because it was so boring. So I thought it's a ground plan, because in the ground plan you see which decision were made, which things are written in stone or in beton or in concrete or whatever. So these parts are fixed, because if you build a house or a prison or whatever, the buildings at least, you see this are the decision. Here's the kitchen. Here's whatever it is, sleeping rooms, etc. These are the decisions. So it's the blueprint, the ground plan. That's a solution intent, a part of solution intent at least.
Awesome, gents. Thank you very much. Let's go back to the solution intent. Another thought that strikes me quite often, also listening to what we already discussed, is we started with speed versus clarity, right? And how to perceive what the solution intent really is. If you read studies, if you look how AI is used at the moment, it's all about coding, building stuff, right? But the value stream is from ideation, from exploring to delivering the value. And my question when it comes to the solution intent, are we really optimizing the wrong or the right part of a value stream based on a fact that at the moment, if you use AI only for like coming up with the specs and the coding part, delivering fast solutions, you're probably optimizing 8, 10, maybe 12% along that value stream. What are your thoughts when it comes to more systems thinking end to end, and now using the solution intent?
Look, I'll jump in first. And I love the value stream framing, because I think the more that I'm working in this space, the more that I'm finding the value stream is just a beautiful anchor. We just need new swim lanes in it. And we think about AI. Solution intent for me was actually, I felt like it was dominance focus was the beginning and the end of the value stream, not the middle. Because I think, if you look at solution intent and you look closely at the way that it was framed in the safe guidance, features and stories are part of feature intent, and features and stories are the expression of your product strategy. And if you look at, let's say you're doing set-based development, right? And you're exploring options through set-based development, that's early in the value stream. And I think that where's the opportunity? The opportunity to think differently and explore more rapidly as you establish your solution intent before you get to the create part of the value stream is huge. And then the ability to go, can we trace back whatever was created against what our intent was, and can we understand the impact of it? at the last mile of the value stream, again, you get a whole bunch of benefit if you've got good clarity in the beginning. So yeah, for me, it was like solution intent and all the ingredients of solution intent are a huge battleground for us to chase outside the 8% of, try and go faster when you're in development.
If we tackle this right, and as Mark said, AI should be part in the value stream and should be part in this process. So to your original questions, yes, we are optimizing the wrong at the moment. We are building specialists. We're helping people becoming faster, but it doesn't help us. It's like years ago, the CEO said each department has to be more productive 10%. They didn't solve his problem, being productive or automating every shitty things we are doing. So you need elements, a systemic view. A systemic view. and with solution intent and AI being part of the creation of it, or being part in the value stream, or thinking about where should AI be, that's the discussion we have to do, and that should be also part of the value stream of the solution intent. How we handle how that we decided AI helps us there and there and there. So yes, we are optimizing the 1%. We are just trying to be more effective on a team level, or efficient on a team level, and that's not the idea. Gosh, go back 10 years. How much time we said it's not optimizing people or teams, it's optimizing the value stream, VR, flight level 2, however you call it. And that's where we should be, and not optimizing people or people's work or whatever.
I'm looking at the back of the room. Ali is listening carefully. Any thoughts you would like to throw in to that discussion?
Listening to you guys and looking at the question, what went through my mind is that we've been searching for optimizations since forever. I mean, the fact that continuous integration and continuous deployment, Jenkins, Chef, Puppet, these type of platforms exist is exactly for this reason. We would like to decrease the path between idea and usable functionality, and we would like to just decrease it, make it faster, make it shorter, make it more automated. And what we're trying to do over here with AI in the mix is the same, I think. Can we speed up and therefore automate certain decisions so that we are not waiting on human intervention? Because that is a bottleneck. It takes too long, and people go home and have dinner after 5 or 6 p.m. while an AI agent continues to work even through the night. What I think is we're just trying to automate yet another portion of our value stream, and in this case, by using a bit more intelligence than a small sort of if this then else algorithm. So I'm not really seeing anything different here. It's just the use of a different sort of solution to enroll an existing approach to optimization.
Mark, I'm just going to add one thing to this, and it's a little teaser, because we're going to do a whole episode around value streams and AI and what that does soon. But if you think about this conversation, one of the things that I'm noticing, and it was really highlighted, I was listening to a podcast, and I forget which podcast it was, but I can tell you who the guest was. The guest was the CTO of Block. If you don't recognize the name Block, if you think about Stripe payments, if you think about Cash App, that's the company. And they are now saying, I think the word was, they believe they're saving about 100,000 developer hours a month with AI. It was like, my goodness, figures. And it was a fascinating episode. But one of the things he pointed out, he said, the first thing we did was we went back towards a functional organization design, because we'd been very much oriented towards product lines, business offerings, value stream type stuff. But we found when we wanted to move our technical foundation that much and be together in the way that we were moving our technical foundation that much, we had to reorganize into functional lines. And he's not the first one I've heard say that. He's probably the first one I've heard describe it as eloquently with as many proof points to back it up. And I think the more that if this is going to be perhaps a trend that we see, the value stream as a depiction of how we collaborate across functional boundaries to achieve an outcome and the insights it can offer us is going to just really pump up in terms of its importance.
Yeah, I see what that means. It's in a way improving the handovers from one competence or discipline to another, and rather than having a handover to be done by a human or from human to human, we're throwing AI into the mix. So so I see how organizing around a functional line would mean that you'd have an AI intelligence to support all the way along that same functional line. I can see how that works.
Picking up the different thoughts that we heard now is what triggers my mind is again the value stream, end-to-end optimization. Ali, you said throwing in AI. Yes, people are probably misusing AI, like you throw something at it, but how do you bake it in? How do you make sure that it's really a part of it? And it's Mark, you mentioned from automation to augmentation, right? If you design something which is just automated, but I don't understand also from the perspective of a solution intent why it's the way it's set up, I probably can't use it valuably or in a good way to then augment to what we really have to do. So from accountability, designing something that is really a good value stream with the right elements in it, the right tools, and then again making sure everyone has access to that intent along the whole value stream. That's what bothers me, right? So with that one, let's move to kind of the next section that I'm in preparation I was dealing with is Mark, you threw in it's from kind of fixed variable or variable to fixed. Some of you mentioned that the solution intent could become a static thing, which is outdated when you use it, right? How do we move from a static to a really dynamic state using AI in a good way? Because AI can or does provide real life data that we can't provide as human beings. So thinking about how you perceive solution intents, and you said, Ali, I haven't seen it the way it should be used. The question would be, what does or should the solution intent become in the future? Now, based on the AI era, who would like to kick it off? Ali, I see you.
No.
Niko.
I want it first. No, Ali, you can if you want to.
I'll keep it short. So I've been working, as you know, with a lot of hardware teams that are using agile practices or are working agile. In the hardware world, there is a very much a need and standards for requirements traceabilities, which makes total sense because projects or product development might take years before there is a new version of a switch or a machine or a chip. So it's very normal to have some strict processes on how to register your specs. And then you have all types of tools that can support you in that. IBM had IBM Doors, which is an old system and nobody likes it. But once you use that system, you're sort of stuck to it. Siemens had Siemens Teamcenter and Siemens Polarion, which is there are tools that where you can have a sort of a huge breakdown between sort of intent. Sort of module specification, like a functional breakdown and a technical breakdown, but then also all of the specification steps from there then on, which allows you to be able to trace back. If this was the spec back in the days, then this has been done. This was the deliverable. This was the person that made the deliverable, and so forth and so forth and so forth. That's a lot of documentation to manually enter very often. I can fully imagine that with the help of AI, that has the ability to collect sort of the I don't know, information from tools like Jira and whatsoever. Like what has been done, what are the comments, how long did it take, what is the deliverable, what is the functionality or the module or the component that has been created, and how does it tie up to the initial product spec. I could see that automation can be done, and vice versa, that at some moment in time that that the, let's say, with AI help, a developer or an engineer gets a notification that, you know, hey, wait a second, you're about to plan a story that is really a deviation from what the spec was intending, was intended, what the idea was behind the spec. And as a matter of fact, by now there are so many people that have, fixed the spec. It's finalized. There's deliverables there that if you're going to change it, you have to change a lot. That it would remind the engineer or the team member for, like, be careful, because you're trying to change something that should be fixed by now. So I can see how that can support, but the thing is, I don't have experience with it.
So when I try to start, I would have to ask a question: how do you see the solution intent? Because some people see it like you now, Ali, summarized it as the Jurassic Park monster, the big thing. And some people see it more like the Monster Incs. It's just the entry point to a factory, and then you have many, many little monsters. And sometimes monsters are not so scary than a big dinosaur from Jurassic Park. So I had mandates where people said, my solution intent is doors, because I have doors and I'm used to Windows 3.1, and I can use this nice UI to nail down everything. But in my world, it's not what I mean with solution intent. It's just one part. So I see it as a family of little monsters, or even cute monsters, or nice things like that one here. Hello, yeah, you're part of the solution intent. So then some parts can be just overwhelmed documentation, because I will never read it. I'll just read the summary. But I need some kind of an entry point to a network where I see, okay, there I find information, and now I find my live dashboard Stephan mentioned, where AI can help me. But it's always the inner picture I have of solution intent is a network of elements, and now some elements can be augmented or automated or be real-time data by AI, and other things are carefully written from humans, because, as I said at the beginning, it's the bus factor savior. So I go to the entry point, I know I go to the reception desk, and now I can find the rooms I need to dig in deeper, to dive in deeper. And it's not something big monster that somebody tries to nourish and tries to keep alive. And that's my picture I have.
Well, if I may, rather than just monsters, there's legislation. If you have to, there's rules. You have to manage that monster, because if there is, if you're building a medical device, choices that are made along the way of product development might influence how the product operates. And if it's a medical device, then there is, at the end of the value stream, there are human lives. And if something happens, machine breaks because of unintended consequences, we need to be able to trace back to see, was this a mistake? Was this malicious intent? Was this a failure mode that we just simply did not see?
I'm completely with you. And then these parts are much more stronger in the solution intent, and that is the big fat monster in the basement. But it's important, otherwise the building will collapse. But still just an important part of solution intent. I'm still with you.
I see that. Yeah.
So it's interesting listening to you guys. And one of the things that jumps out at me is, like, if we think about the monster, and I love the monster, right? This is such a great way of thinking about a big solution and its intent. Like in a world pre-AI, I always felt like if you tried to get all your answer into a Jira or a Rally or some other tool, right, you were doomed, because you had artifacts in SharePoint, in Doors, in, goodness knows where else, in tools that the business architects used for capability mapping, in logs from traceability reporting. And I always had this feeling, it was like, if you really wanted solution intent, what you wanted to do was to build some kind of data lake that actually drew all that data together so you could work with it together. And enterprise after enterprise would have this discussion. They're like, oh, we want to do better at proving this or managing that or whatever. It's like, oh, you need these systems. And getting them to integrate was going to be painful, but actually if you could vortex it into a data lake and do some meaningful things, that was potentially really good, but also really expensive. And I talked to a lot of enterprises who went, that'd be great, but it's too much time and money, and we don't have that time and money. Because most of what you're describing, and listening to you, Ali, the JIRA tickets and the time on the JIRA tickets and so on and so forth, you don't need AI for that. That's just classic automation. Call the API, suck the data out. You might need AI if JIRA's a mess and you want to make some clever AI-driven cleanups along the way where you're sucking it out. But the place where, for me, it really becomes huge is, how do I navigate it? Right? If you think about the monster, and I'm the dev going, if I want to raise a question about this, how fixed was it? What was the thinking behind the decisions? Is the decision traced to legislation? And what does the legislation say about the decision? Have I been at the company for 20 years and I know where every skeleton is buried? Or do I just have to live with, I'm going to follow the rules because it's too complex to find the answer? And I think that's where AI has the opportunity to do something for us, because when it's truly a monster is when we've got a lot of read-only documents in there that many of the people who could benefit from them never read them. Don't know they exist, too hard to find, whatever.
That's correct.
At which point it's becoming static, it's write-only documents. But if you've got everybody benefiting from it every day because you've done something with AI to go, we can help you to understand and tap into the monster, and perhaps tame the monster so that it can actually give you information. Now I'm starting to get a living system intent, which is kind of exciting. Niko.
Yeah, but be careful, not all the monsters are part of the solution intent. So in my pre-safe life, I teach requirements engineering, by the way. So I don't know if I ever said that to you guys. And then the important part then for me was make the people understand there's a difference between project repository and product repository. And many JIRA things are not product information and are not part of the solution intent. And for many people, it was why everything in JIRA should be documented. So yeah, I want to know in 1998 what Niko has developed, because it was really important to have all these freaking JIRA tickets until end of life in my solution intent. No, it's something you just throw away. Think about it, what is important for the solution intent to be in the memory. So sometimes, because memory is cheap and we can have all the data we want, we just invite every monster to the family and make a too huge building, which is not the idea of the solution intent. We have some monsters, but not all of them. The others are just there for the daily business and then can die immediately after they fulfill the purpose. And we just take the purpose or the outcome. And this is now part of the solution intent.
It's really interesting listening to you guys, and I like it. I recently had a workshop with architects, and one part of the workshop was about the solution intent, understanding what it is, reading the definition, and they got it. And then I asked them, if you had the magic wand, what should it be in the age or era of AI? Guess what? For half a minute, it was really quiet in the room. And then one guy started and said, shouldn't it be my companion who triggers good discussions based on truth, what is already fixed, but also poking holes into that? As you mentioned, Ali, maybe we should be able to discuss that as well, to then talk about the options and talk about what are the future paths we could take before we fix it again, right? So really having a good companion that helps us to evaluate and experiment on the future options that we have. And with that, I would like to conclude with a final trigger question. There's still the human element and poking holes. What about spirit versus mechanics, right? We people are pretty comfortable if someone does the job, if AI does the job, but how not to lose the human connection when it comes to the solution intent? What would you throw into the ring?
I'm having a little bit a déjà vu. I remember when I was younger and a developer, I talked with people from the business about how their business worked. And I realized more and more people lost the capability to explain me their work. So there was only one older woman and an older guy who was able to explain me the idea behind of it. And all the others explained me, oh, I'm clicking here, I'm clicking there, I'm clicking that. And now please do the new version of that. And it wasn't a new version. The idea was to write something completely new and streamline the process. And I needed to understand what is the concept behind of it. And most of the business people weren't able to explain me what they are doing. They told me what they are doing on the buttons, but not what the purpose behind the work is. Why I'm telling this story, we have to be careful if we outsource everything to AI to not lose the skills of critical thinking, to not lose the skills architects and product managers have today. I realize sometimes that I too much rely on AI because I want to have it faster. And then happily, I realize it's not the quality I want to have. But I'm really afraid that people starting losing these capabilities and just believe everything that comes like streamlined or whatever. So we have to still educate the people that they know what they are doing, that they have these skills. Otherwise, we'll just be no inventions or no real future. And so, we need the human factor, and we have to be careful that we don't lose this capability of knowing what we are doing and knowing what's important. And now the fun parts, please. No, not for me this time.
Ollie, what about you?
Well, I think the solution intent is all about humans. Why? Because, if you have an AI-powered solution intent, that doesn't forget. The solution intent is there for people or for entities that do forget, like us humans do, because we're capturing the intent of what we're trying to build, but also doing that for, let's say, future generations. What do I mean with that? The engineer or the colleague that is going to join the company 5 years from now, and it should have the ability to trace back what was built at that time and why was it built at that time. So I think it is all about the human connection, but it can be facilitated by AI.
I love the facilitated by AI piece of that puzzle, because if you think into, and boy, my mindset is so much more here now. It's about going, what's the human AI collaboration, but also, and particularly if you think about solution intent and its attempt to go, we want a systems view. We want to know the what, the why, the how, the when, how do you make sure that that is going to work in a human AI world, not just a human AI world? Because that's what I'm finding. And it happens every week when we get together and we have this chat. We're all on slightly different journeys when we get into the space of AI, right? And how do I want to tap into something is very different to how Niko wants to tap into something. It's very different to how Stephan wants to tap in or Ali wants to tap in. And if we wanted AI to be, part of the team, and we went from 4 people to 5 people, the way in which we thought about employing it would have to be something that was helpful and useful and accessible to all of us. And I think that's the human bit, is just remembering that different humans are at different places in terms of their preferred way of accessing information or approaching thinking.
Let's conclude with the famous last words. What is the takeaway? Who would like to kick it off?
Not guilty. No. For me, the solution intent should be let someone else, because I have noise in the background. Sorry.
All right. No, let me take it over. I think having AI help out in keeping the solution intent alive and up to date, I think that's going to be great. Just, take away that chore from people, but let AI use data that is out there to, as I mentioned, keep the solution intent alive and up to date. I think that would be cool.
So the noise is away. talking about noise, the solution intent should be the first thing you navigate to find out what's happening and what's the intent to go. And be careful not to have too much noise, not to have too much garbage. It's a place to go to find out about the intent.
Look, for me, I think it's about you need a living intent. How do you make it live and breathe? And if AI can help you in that, fantastic.
I would like to conclude with a haiku. AI writes so fast, yet wisdom needs time to grow. Keep options open. And the talking stick goes back to Mark.
And the talking stick's back to me. And we've had Niko was going to host next week, and then he has other engagements. And the first topic that came to my head when I jumped in was to go, let's do value streams. And I went, I don't want to do value streams without Niko for their conversation. So next week will be a lucky dip. We will talk about something.
Not everything or anything.
And
something.
And we will all complain because Niko will still send us a jiggle, even though he's not going to be here to supervise what we do with it. So he'll be here in spirit as the torture master, if not in the flesh. Until then, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed our exploration of solution intent.